How's it going, everybody? Today's video, we're going to do some skid steer work. My driveway has never connected since I've lived here. There's a muddy spot in between one shop and the other. 10 years I've been saying I'm going to fix that. Now, there's like 6-inch rock as a base here, but the mud has just taken over and the grass. So today's video, let's fire up old Gale, my Gale 5635 SX skid steer. And let's skim the top layer off of that mud and grass, and let's put about a 4-inch layer of gravel. This is limestone, and it's a road base, so this stuff here, it's full of dust, and when the rain hits it, it actually packs like concrete. It gets super hard. There's a major rainstorm coming in about 3 hours, so I figured today's the perfect day to do it. Let's jump right in. Okay, I start this project by scraping the top layer off. Now, if you live in a place that has sandy soil, that kind of thing, you might find this comical, but our ground is rock hard here. This machine weighs about 10,000 pounds. I have a 72-inch cat tooth bucket on it, and it's just bouncing off the top. So as you guys can see, I'm just bouncing off the top. Once I break the edge and get an edge going, it'll start to grab and I'll peel that couple inches of mud and grass off the top layer. I just scrape it gently and slowly, and it doesn't seem like I'm getting much done, but as you guys will see pretty soon, all of a sudden there's no grass. Now underneath this grass and mud is 6-inch rock and like 1-inch limestone. So it's very packed, but it looks horrible, and you get mud all over your truck and all over you when it's raining and in spring. So it's time to put a top coat on it. I'm going to put about 4 inches down, something like that. Here we go, I'm finally getting somewhere. Layer by layer, I'm finally scraping just to the top of where the gravel is in front of the shop. Okay, just cleaning up the parts I can't get to or am scared to get to. Notice that's a low profile bucket. It fits underneath that overhang, but there's some big rocks there, and those rocks have been sitting there for 11 years, friends, and probably another 20 years before that. So it makes me happy to get this done. I get enjoyment from doing simple physical labor, always have, and it makes me feel good, especially when you're done and you sit back and you look at what you just did. So, oops, missed. Okay, I thought I'd jump in here. If if you've never built a driveway or maintained a gravel driveway, this is all stuff that I've learned over time. I was lucky. My uncle lives next door. He's a farmer, and farmers know how to landscape and build driveways and all that kind of stuff. So the first time I ever worked on a driveway, I remember just digging it up. I had a tractor then with a box blade and a loader. And I remember looking at it and just feeling like I'm just making a huge mess. And my uncle stopped by and he said, just keep going back and forth. Just keep working it and it'll be perfect. And that's what I've learned. So here I'm taking bucket load by bucket load and I'm trying to put a decently uniform layer. Again, if this was a newer machine, I could just flick gravel into place, but hydraulics are slow on this thing, so just spreading it out, and then I back blade it and try and smooth it out and just try and make it uniform. Like I said, if you're new to running equipment, practice makes perfect, and just take your time and just keep working it and going back and forth, and you'll end up with a really smooth, really even surface. And you can always go back later and fill in the low spots after some water's gone on it and after it's been driven over. Another thing I'll mention here, notice I'm driving slowly, moving slowly. That bucket full of rock is heavy enough to tip this machine over, so if you've never run a tired skid steer, it's definitely more of a balancing act. The ones on tracks you can just rip around, but any machine that's on tires, huge tipping hazard. So if you've never run a tired skid steer or you're renting one, just take your time and go slowly and keep that bucket low. My rule of thumb is I like to have the bucket no higher than my hands in the cab, and move slowly. If I back up with the bucket too high, I will flip this machine right over. I've done it twice. Luckily, I got the bucket down before she went right over. Okay, friends, there it is. I smoothed it out the best I could. So I got parking for about 3 trucks there now. 2 maybe, 2.5. Here's what's left of the gravel. Old Gail did a heck of a job again. Not as fast as a modern machine. You can't just flick gravel in like you would with a modern machine, but she does the job. Okay, well, that worked out well. It's been a 10-year dream to get this stuff done little by little. Now, major storm rolling in. That's why I wanted to do this right now today. This will pack right down, and then I'll see where if there's any low spots. It seems like it's a little bit low there, so once it packs down, I'll probably push this back, but more or less it's graded that way. So, and this area in the front goes to there and down, so I think it'll be okay. Anyhow, thanks for hanging out. One project at a time, we're gonna get her done. It's time for question of the day, but first, we got our rain, lots of rain. That driveway's gonna pack down hard as a rock and keep the stuff from growing through it, so I love when a plan comes together. Anyhow, sometimes things work out, don't they? Today's question of the day comes from Alex Hebden. Alex is all the way from the UK. How's it going, buddy? Thanks for sending me this question. I've had this question many, many times, and I kind of have my own opinions about it. But anyways, Alex is building a 395 to be a milling saw. I have a buddy that mills with a 395 for years, and he loves that saw for milling. Alex wanted to know my thoughts on a milling saw. He was mentioning high RPM and less torque. I don't know. If you're milling big timber with a long bar and a 395, to me, I would try and make that saw grunty. And I wouldn't do a ton of port work to it for a milling saw. I would try and keep the RPMs rational, not jack up the compression too much. Here's the problem, Alex, with a milling saw, especially when you do mods to it. If you jack up the compression and the RPM in a milling saws run super, super hot. I have seen so many saws absolutely cooked by milling. Guys will try and finish that cut and the chain will go dull and they'll pop goes the weasel. So to me, Alex, all the mods that I would do to a milling saw would be to keep it cooler. A good muffler mod or a pipe. Guys typically don't like pipes on a milling saw that I've spoken to because that saw is usually right here by your head. So to each their own. I wear good hearing protection, so I like a pipe on everything. But Alex, think about what the saw is going to do and how the saw is going to live. Try to keep it cool with your mods. Secondly, he wanted to know my thoughts on a single ring piston for a milling saw. Well, Alex, I run single ring pistons on pretty much every saw. It is rare that I will put 2 pistons on or 2 rings on a piston. I'll put the top ring on and leave the bottom one out. 2 reasons, you mentioned it in your email. Less parasitic draw. A single ring saw, all those factory hot rods they made in the 70s, 80s, and 90s, most of them have a single ring or 2 thin low tension rings. So I like a single ring piston. Less parasitic draw, oil on the top and the bottom of the ring. Think about it. When you have 2 rings, there's no oil in between. That can be hard on it, and you should have less heat with a single ring piston. So, and lastly, Alex, if you're worried about heat on your milling saw that you're building, you could drill some oil holes in places that you think are going to get hot. And that could really keep the temperatures down in those hot spots. The piston side, the exhaust side opposite of the flywheel, that's generally the side that's going to get the hottest. You could drill a couple holes in the piston skirt beside the exhaust port, and when the piston's going down, it'll push oil onto the cylinder wall and keep it cooler. So anyhow, when you finish that saw, I'd love to hear about how it worked out. Send me another email or a link to a video. I'd love to see how that worked out. I've never ported a saw for milling. Maybe I should one day, but That's what I know, Alex. Anyhow, thanks for watching. Take her easy. Later.